disconnect right here under your fuel tank. All right. Now I'm going to do my ditch lights. I'm actually going to put a graphic up on the screen right now that shows you what the condition of your plug is telling you about the operation of your engine. Welcome to Wrench and Ride Customs. In part one of this video, we did a 3-hole oil change with a scavenger, and we also did the air filter. And a lot of people, that's kind of the extent of their do-it-yourself service. I like to take it a step further. Now, I've got my owner's manual here, and in the manual, there is a list of other things that you need to check, which we are going to go through in part two of this 32,000 kilometer, 20,000 mile service. One of the first things that I do when I'm doing my complete service is to inspect for any leaks. According to the manual, you want to look for oil line leaks, and you also want to look for fuel leaks. So I've been monitoring, and I haven't had any leaks under the bike. It doesn't appear, if you look under here, when you get to where your tank is here. On the soft tails, the oil lines come from the tank up top and they go down. The touring models are built differently. It's kind of all internal and underneath here. So you want to look and make sure that you don't see any weeping, anything leaking. Now let's go take a look at the fuel line next. On the touring models, there is a quick disconnect right here under your fuel tank. And then from there, you have a fuel line over to your throttle body and injectors. This is something that can leak. It's just a little spigot with an O-ring on the end. So you want to just inspect here to make sure that you don't see any fuel leaks. The next thing to do is an electrical check, and you want to first turn the bike on and check your instrument cluster to make sure that there isn't anything burnt out. And then you want to check all of the lights, right? Your headlights, high, low, your signal lights, right, left. And then in addition to that, I kind of group into this electrical check, a check on the spark plugs to make sure that they're in good condition, make sure there's no issues there. So let's go ahead and do that part of the service now. So I'm going to turn the bike on, and we're going to take a look here. We have a headlight. We're going to go high. We got high. Excellent. All right. Now I'm going to do my ditch lights. Great. I got running lights. Excellent. So now let's see here. Okay, excellent. And there we go. So that's good. So then we want to do the same for the rear. Make sure that when you apply your brake, the brake light is coming on, your signal lights are on, and your license plate light hasn't been burnt out. Check that next. Brake, signal, excellent. And then, yes, my license plate light is working. License plate light is working. Awesome. So that is that. The last part of your electrical inspection, I kind of group this into electrical, is your spark plugs. Now, according to my owner's manual, at the 32,000 or 20,000 mile service, you should change your spark plugs. So these are just put in they're not torqued down, so it's a very easy thing, but I'm not using just a regular socket. This is a 5/8, and it's got a little rubber piece inside of it to protect the end of the spark plug. Now that I've loosened that off, I should just be able to take it out by hand. Next thing we do is just inspect the plug and see any obvious signs of anything, right? This will tell us a lot. And I'm actually going to put a graphic up on the screen right now that shows you what the condition of your plug is telling you about the operation of your engine.
The gap looks good. The color looks good. It's definitely not running too rich, nor too lean. That looks like a pretty good plug.
Right. But it is calling for replacement, so we will replace them. Okay, because I've got the fatty wires on here, it is recommended that you go with the Screaming Eagle spark plugs, which I'm going to do. I put a little bit of oil on the threads. I'm going to put this in. It's not needed, but it's recommended. And if you guys are going to start to get to know us a little better, you're going to find out that Kevin doesn't always do things that are recommended. I pretty much always do.
Oh, come on.
Thread this in by hand. Make sure that there's no, you don't want to cross thread it. That would be disastrous. When you get to the bottom, that's when you can put your ratchet on there and just a little. Okay, so that spark plug has been installed. I always put a little bit of dielectric grease on any of my electrical connections. So I'm just going to squeeze a little bit in there. And I'm going to put that on there. I've already done the front cylinder, so same thing. Okay, so now we're doing the tire and the wheels, and mine have spokes, so we have to check those a little differently than we would with mags. There's that extra step when you have a spoked rim. But first we're going to check the tire depth. Now, these tires are good to 2/32 or 0.065 inches. I've got my handy dandy little tool here from Harley-Davidson. It's got the both millimeters and in fractions, so 1/32, 0.232, etc. And what you're going to do is put that in the center of the tire like so. And then we're just going to press in. And then that gives us a reading. So as you can see, this tire is in excellent shape, and I will record that in my manual. And now let's go around to the front of the bike and do it again, and I'll show you what to do with the spokes. So I've got my tool again. First thing I'm going to do is check the tire. And this one, yeah, we're looking good. So anything above the red and the blue is good. So I will record that in my manual. Now, the other thing that you want to do is this has got a spoked rim. So it has a tube, and these spokes, you need to get something metal, and you need to kind of tap each one. It's going to make a very distinct tone. Now, when you're hitting it, if all of a sudden you hear one that has a different tone, chances are that one has come loose. You can tighten the spokes, but you have to be very careful because if you tighten it too much, it'll actually take the rim out of true, and then it'll wear the tire, cause all kinds of issues. So I'll show you what it sounds like when it's good. Now, I've had all my rims done very recently, and I suspect that every one of them are tight and true. And so it's unlikely I'll be able to show you the sound it makes when it's loose, but I can tell you, or I can show you rather, the sound it makes when it's good. So I'm just using my Allen key here. So as you can hear that ting sound, and if it was kind of like a clunk or a dong, and it had a different tone, it might indicate there's an issue. But this is something important to do when you have spoked rims. If you have mag rims, you don't need to do this. Now, in your manual, it'll recommend that you inspect your Jiffy stand. Now, what you want to be thinking about with the Jiffy stand is you want to think about whether or not, when you've had the bike on the Jiffy stand, if there's been any movement. And with early model bikes, there is an 11/16 nut on the top of the Jiffy stand that needs to be torqued to 50 foot-pounds. If it's a late model like mine, mine's an 09, it's a half-inch bolt, and that needs to be torqued to 20 foot-pounds. Now, you should also probably grease and lubricate the Jiffy stand, and hopefully nothing's worn out. If it is, you may have to replace it, but this is something you definitely want to keep an eye on, because the last thing you want to do is put the bike on the Jiffy stand, walk away, and then watch it fall over. So let me show you where exactly the location of the half-inch bolt on late model. It'll be in the same location, but it's an 11/16 nut on early models. So you see right down in here, right there, that is a half-inch bolt that needs to be torqued to 20 foot-pounds. And I have already taken that bolt out, and I cleaned it all up and Loctited it, and then I torqued it down to 20 foot-pounds, so we are good. Okay, so I've got some notes here on what is remaining on the service, and I want to kind of talk you through it. I'm going to be making videos with Kevin on a lot of this stuff, on how to do it coming up. So today in this video, we're just going to review what the steps are, and then we will be making like exact how-tos on how to do clutch adjustment, how to do belt tension, how to change and adjust your clutch and brake levers, and how to service them. So let's just go through a few things. Okay, so the next thing on my list is to do the belt tension and just double check it. Now, we've got the bike on the lift, and I want to go over the proper procedure, but it involves actually taking it off the lift. And since we're not done the full inspection, I'm just going to talk about how to do it, and you'll be able to figure it out from there. I've got this great little tool. Allows you to set this bottom O-ring at 10 psi, and then when you press it there like that, you know exactly how hard to press. The belt sits inside of here. With a touring bike, you want 10 psi in the rear air shocks. If you've got the older model like me, you want the bike on the ground on the Jiffy stand, okay? And with 10 psi, nobody's sitting on it, no extra weight on it, then you'll get a proper measurement. So Kevin, if we go down here, so you'll see with the touring models, they've got these marks here, and the belt is right here, okay? What you do is you put this on the belt like so, and you push until you get to 10 psi, and you see how much the belt moved. So my belt, there's some movement there, and I'm going to have to double check that with the bike on the ground on the Jiffy stand to get the proper measurement. What is the spec? Well, in the manual, it differentiates between an FLHX, which is the Street Glide models, and all other touring models. This is a Road King Classic, so I fall under the other models. And 3/8 to 7/16 movement is acceptable for my bike. So what you do is each one of those little lines on that measurement is 1/8 of an inch. So you measure how many lines the belt moved up when you hit 10 psi, and as long as it's within 3/8 to 7/16, the belt's tension is great. Too much tension on your belt will wear out the components on this end. Not enough will actually wear the teeth out and the actual drive gear on the rear wheel.
You know, Jamie, I'm glad that you talked about the teeth. So how are we going to check those? These are the teeth on the belt, right? So in order to check those properly, we're going to take our lift right here. We're going to lift this up, make sure that the back tire is off the ground. We're going to put it in 6th gear, and we're slowly just going to rotate that tire, or have your partner or helper rotate that back tire, and take a look and make sure that we don't have any nicks, gouges, or any missing teeth on our belt.
Now, what else is on my list? Well, there is the brake system and the clutch and controls. Now, with the brake system, what we're really looking at is we're looking at the condition of our fluid. We're looking to see if there's any leaking hydraulic brake lines. And we also want to make sure that we have rotors that are in good shape and our brake pads are within spec. And so the allowable spec, I believe, is 230 seconds as well. I'll double check that. But the actual spec. Now, I've already done calipers, brakes. I've completely flushed all of it. So I know that my brakes are in great shape. I know there's no leaks. We're going to do a complete video on a full brake service that you can reference in the future. But this is something that when you are doing your inspection on your service, you should be checking each one of those. Now, you don't have to take the calipers off. You can actually look from up above down and see how much pad life you have. And if you had a very thin ruler, you could actually get in there and check it. It's not that big of a deal to take the calipers off either and just really take a look at things. Also, rebuilding your calipers. If you have touring models and you're in cold climate, we're coming into winter right now as I record this. And I more than likely next year in springtime, before I ride again, will take my calipers apart and service them. The reason I do that is because they are prone to having the pistons kind of stick, and then that gives you vibration in your brakes. So that's kind of part of a more comprehensive. But according to the manual, you inspect for leaks, you check your levels and condition of your brake fluid, you check your brake controls, make sure they're up, they're adjusted correctly. You make sure that anything that needs to be lubricated, like the pin and the handle on the other side, would be done. And then, of course, your pads and discs. Now, on the clutch, you have this derby cover off, as we showed you in the complete oil service video. There is an adjuster in there, and there's also an adjustment on the cable down low, and then there's your control up here. And that's a bit of a job. You have to take the derby cover off. You have to loosen, slacken off all of the tension. You then adjust using the adjuster. Then you tighten everything back up again. And one of the little tricks I learned is that if you can put a nickel in between your here where the cable is, if you can put a nickel in there and tighten it to that level, then that is as good as any dealer spec. So, and again, you might want to pop the pin out here and clean it up and then lubricate it or grease it so that your controls are all good. So we'll do a complete video on that, but that is part of a complete service. So as you can see, there's a lot more to servicing your bike than just doing the oil change. So those are the things that are recommended for the 20,000 mile or 32,000 kilometer service. Now, things not on the list for this service that are going to come up in the future, fuel filter will need to be changed at the 40,000 or 25,000 miles. So the next service, it'll recommend I change my fuel filter. The front fork oil and possibly the seals would need to be changed in the future. Now, I've got a whole seal kit that I've ordered, and I'm also thinking about doing some upgrades, maybe some cartridges for that front suspension. So I've got my eye on that, and I'm going to do a video with Kevin, and we will show you how to do that. It's a big job, but it's worth it to do it. And then the compensator sprocket isolators, you want to inspect for wear. Now, if you watch the the complete service video that we did, you'll know that I found a little bit of shavings on the magnet, and I suspect I've got a compensator issue. So before I go ahead and do that work, I've got to make a decision. And what I'm really thinking about is, do I do a Screaming Eagle compensator replacement, Screaming Eagle clutch pack upgrade, and then an inner primary kit for all the seals? Do I do it that way, or do I spend the extra money, convert the compensator to a Dark Horse Man of War motor sprocket, and then do the clutch and the inner primary? You know, one costs about $1,200 if I go with all the Screaming Eagle parts. If I go with the Man of War, that's $1,200 alone, and then you've got the kit and the clutch, so you're probably looking at about $1,800. So I've got a decision to make there on which way to go. And again, that work isn't recommended for the 32,000 kilometer, but because I know that there's an issue, I'm more than likely going to do it over the winter. And when I get ready to ride in the spring, it'll all be done. If you're going to do this yourself, you got to do your research. You got to build out the list based on your manual. If you want to get a service manual to show you how to do it, or watch videos like the ones we're producing, but it's really important that you do this service work in order to keep your bike in top working condition. That's part of the wrench and ride whole ethos. So that wraps up this video. Thanks for watching right to the end. Tell me what you do with your service, maybe that I didn't cover, something that I missed. And we love the comments that we've been getting. You know, we're not trying to be the be all and expert voice in the room here. We can all learn from each other. That's kind of what the wrench and ride whole thing is about people coming together and learning and figuring things out. So some of the comments we've had, they've been very, very helpful. Keep them coming. Really appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon. Kevin will be back for our next video, where we're going to be talking about some of the upgrades we're going to do.